Welcome to our next module. We're on the oval, and I'm right with the Geography 2100 class, and they're doing their tether sonde experiment. So if you've been on the oval today, you've probably seen this flying high above where they make their weather measurements.
So, good to be inside here, but the weather is good and the weather sonde out on the oval is going up and down today. This is a class that is learning all there is around physical geography and weather and what have you. And so it was an interesting coincidence that I happened to be crossing the oval on my way to record this video. So I figured I might as well stop and shoot some live action on the oval in case you've wondered what that big balloon is for. So they send small little wind measurement and temperature measurement sondes up with that balloon so that they can measure temperature, basically the weather conditions at different elevations, and sort of study how wind patterns and things change in a really short distance. You may have heard that with respect to the reporting now around the hurricanes that have been battering our coastlines. So that was it. This module that we're going to start this week is all about weather and climate. It is the third sphere, introducing the atmosphere. And it does start with a little bit of basics around how we position things in the world, because the latitude-longitude system that we use, it also helps us sort of defining specific patterns, global, large-scale patterns of weather and climate across the globe. So with that as your background, you're going to dig into the climate data that you collected last week in the last module. Some of you submitted just today. I gathered all of the submissions that you all submitted, which means that we don't just have 10 observations, we have several hundred observations, which is the fun thing with these types of classes, where you can gather all kinds of interesting large number of data from various places without anyone having to suffering too much tedious work. But it does, provide some insights into how data is collected and how tedious it can be to enter that data into, protocols and forms. So you're going to do some maps based on those data in this module. And part of that exercise is also to realize how different aspects of geography or geographic patterns of certain characteristics intermix. So if you take, for example, the temperature patterns in the United States, you will see one set of regions. We will experiment with trying to outline warm and sort of intermediate and colder areas of the United States, and then you're going to do the same thing for precipitation. So you have wetter, drier conditions, and they kind of intermix so that you can have a warm, wet type of climate, and you can have a dry, wet climate, not a dry, wet, a warm, a cold, wet, cold, dry, and so forth. And so you will see as we move on how different combinations of certain aspects of the world create these regions with particular set of characteristics that then define different places. And it's all about how you gather that data and also what you're interested in for the moment. So if you are interested in weather, then that forms particular patterns. If you are interested in tectonics, that forms particular regions and so forth. So the overlays and the mixing or intersections of these variables is really what this module is about. As a part, just learning a little bit more about climate and weather. And then we have the current events discussion. So you've done a phenomenal job with the first one, where we have seen tons of activity in the initial post and follow-up posts. And we're now going to launch a new discussion similar to that. So we start a new theme around weather and climate, and particularly flooding. We've had tons of water calm down in places that are not quite used to that amount of water. So we're going to look and compare flooding across different places in the world and sort of look for similarities and differences between those places. The current events assignment is actually one of my favorites, and it seems to be a lot of student favorites as well, because it allows us to really connect with what's going on at this very moment, or what's happened for the past month or two or something like that. Because there's always something going on in geography. There's always something interesting that has geographic aspects and geographic implications. So we love to bring those in and try to connect them with the material that you're currently focusing on. And it's usually not that hard to find examples. The hard thing is to wedge it in and make that discussion helpful, informative from your learning perspective. And so far, I think you've seen some benefit to do that with these connections. So I hope you will enjoy this module, and we'll see each other soon again.